I mean, he's always banging on the door. Next thing you know, Buster, he's taking off all his clothes, everything, and he stuffed them in the toilet. And he's steady flushing the toilet so it'll run over.
Right.
So water's running out in the floor. Well, then we take a bunch of towels and shit and shove it up on his door where it's backing up in his room. And then we turn the water off. The officer opens the closet door where the water is, so we turn the water off. Well, next thing you know, that bastard pops the sprinkler head. I didn't even know you could do that, but apparently if you hit it hard enough, you can pop the sprinkler. So he's in his cell, butt naked. Buster, he's taking shit. And he's shit in his hands, and he rubs it all over the window. The doors have windows in them, you know?
Right.
He's taking shit and rubbed it all in the window, all on the walls, and then he busts the sprinkler head off.
Damn.
I mean, a nasty son of a bitch. So that was all day Friday. Water, 2 inches of water went everywhere. Then
right.
These fools backed up a toilet this morning, but fortunately it didn't come down to where I was.
Yeah.
But, just crazy stuff.
3 bodies, 2 crime scenes, 1 surviving son who knows more than he's saying. While his father, Alex Murdaugh, rots in prison for executing his wife and youngest child, Buster Murdaugh walks free. But freedom doesn't mean innocence. Not when your name is whispered in connection with not 1, not 2, but 3 suspicious deaths spanning nearly a decade. Days ago, our 2-part investigation exposed how Alex Murdaugh methodically slaughtered his own family. Tonight, we're diving into something far more sinister. The possibility that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. That the last remaining Murdaugh heir isn't a victim at all, but a predator who's been hiding behind his family's destruction. Stephen Smith, Maggie Murdaugh, Paul Murdaugh. One was found with his skull crushed on a lonely country road. 2 were gunned down at their family estate. All 3 deaths have one thing in common. They orbit around Buster Murdaugh like planets around a dark star. By the end of this investigation, you'll either believe that Buster is the most persecuted innocent man in America, or you'll realize we've been staring at a killer who's never spent a single day behind bars. If you missed our explosive 2-part series on the Murdaugh murders, you need to watch those first. The links are in the description. And if you're ready to dive deeper into cases that challenge everything you think you know, subscribe to Dark Trail Files and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we uncover tonight. Richard Alexander Buster Murdaugh Jr. wasn't born into just any family. He was born into the closest thing South Carolina had to criminal royalty. For nearly a century, the Murdaugh dynasty controlled the 14th Judicial Circuit, wielding power that most people can only imagine. But power like that doesn't come without cost. And for Buster, that cost would eventually be measured in blood. As our previous investigation revealed, the Murdaugh family's grip on Hampton County was absolute. They decided who got prosecuted and who walked free. They controlled investigations, influenced juries, and buried scandals. And Buster was being groomed to inherit all of it. But what we didn't explore in our earlier videos was how this toxic legacy shaped Buster himself. Growing up in a family where violence was allegedly swept under the rug, where power trumped justice, where the family name could make problems disappear. What does that do to a young man's moral compass? This question becomes crucial when we examine the whispers that have followed Buster Murdaugh since he was a teenager. Whispers about a death that happened 6 years before his mother and brother were gunned down. A death that some believe he's responsible for. July 8th, 2015. Sandy Run Road, Hampton County. 19-year-old Stephen Smith's body is discovered in the middle of the road. His head caved in, his shoes missing. The official ruling, motor vehicle strike. A hit and run. But Stephen's mother, Sandy Smith, knew immediately something was wrong. No skid marks, no vehicle debris, no broken glass, no witnesses to a collision that supposedly happened on a road locals travel regularly. And then came the whispers. In a town where secrets are currency and everyone knows everyone's business, Stephen Smith's name became permanently linked with Buster Murdaugh's. Here's where the story gets dark. Multiple sources have claimed that Stephen and Buster had some kind of relationship. Some suggest they were classmates who knew each other casually. Others hint at something more intimate. But regardless of the nature of their connection, one fact remains. Stephen Smith died under suspicious circumstances, and Buster Murdaugh's name has never stopped surfacing in connection with that death. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division reopened Stephen's case in 2021, coinciding with the Murdaugh family murder investigation. They've conducted dozens of interviews, re-examined evidence, and followed every lead. Yet no charges have been filed. But here's what makes this case so disturbing: the pattern of alleged cover-ups. Multiple witnesses have claimed they were told to keep quiet about what they knew. Others say they were discouraged from providing information to investigators. Sound familiar? It's the same pattern of obstruction that allegedly protected the Murdaugh family for decades. So the question becomes, was Stephen Smith's death another crime the Murdaugh family made disappear? And if so, was Buster the one who needed protecting? While law enforcement has never charged Buster with anything, the internet has already tried and convicted him. Social media platforms are flooded with theories about his involvement in Stephen's death. True crime forums dissect every photo, every statement, every appearance for signs of guilt. The accusations are relentless and often cruel. Users have labeled him everything from a closeted killer to a psychopathic heir who learned violence from his father. They point to his calm demeanor during interviews as evidence of his guilt, because apparently, grieving differently than they expect makes you a suspect. But here's the terrifying reality. Most of these theories are based on absolutely nothing. No physical evidence. No credible witnesses. No official accusations. Just speculation, rumors, and the toxic combination of true crime obsession and social media vigilantism. Imagine living your life knowing that thousands of people believe you're a murderer based on internet gossip. Every job interview, every relationship, every public appearance, all contaminated by accusations you can't disprove because you can't prove a negative. This is Buster's reality. He's been sentenced to a lifetime of suspicion without ever being charged with a crime. June 7th, 2021. While Alex and Paul Murdaugh were at Moselle, their hunting lodge, Buster was nearly 200 miles away in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He was working, living quietly, trying to build a life separate from the family drama that seemed to follow the Murdaugh name everywhere. As we detailed in our previous investigation, that night changed everything. Maggie Murdaugh, 52, was executed near the dog kennels. Paul Murdaugh, 22, was blown apart in the feed room. Both killed with different weapons by someone they trusted completely. When that call came, Buster's world didn't just change, it exploded. In a single night, he lost his mother and brother. But that was just the beginning of his nightmare. Because almost immediately, the internet turned its suspicious gaze toward him. Why wasn't he at the lodge that night? How convenient that he had an alibi. What did he know about his father's crimes? Was this a family conspiracy? The theories multiplied like cancer. Some suggested Buster was the real mastermind, that he manipulated his father into killing Maggie and Paul. Others claimed he was present at the murders despite his alibi. The most vicious theories painted him as a psychopath who felt nothing as his family was destroyed. But watch his testimony. Look at his face when he talks about losing his mother and brother. This isn't the expression of a calculated killer. This is a young man whose entire world has been obliterated.
My dad called me. I can't remember the exact time, but it was later. And he called me on the phone. He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
What'd you do?
Well, Brooklyn, my girlfriend, was with me, and I think she heard she could hear my conversation kind of over the phone, and so she just started packing stuff, and I kind of just sat there for a minute, and I was in shock. But eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle.
Do you remember what time you got to Moselle?
It was early in the morning, late in the morning. If we left around 10:30, 11, got there sometime probably around 2 o'clock in the morning.
And when you got there, did you see your dad?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition was he in? What was his demeanor?
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
Could he speak?
Not really.
Was he crying?
Yes, sir.
Who else was in the house? Do you remember?
Yeah. My girlfriend Brooklyn and I got there. Out in the driveway, my Uncle Randy and Uncle John were out there. Chris Wilson and Corey Fleming had just gotten there. They had pulled in behind us, and when I walked in, several of the partners were there. Ronnie Crosby was there, Lee Cope was there, Mark Ball was there, Austin Crosby was there, William Barnes, my buddy Nolan was there.
For over a year after the murders, as evidence mounted against Alex Murdaugh, Buster stood by his father. He attended court hearings, supported Alex's defense, and publicly maintained his father's innocence. To his critics, this loyalty was proof of his involvement. They argued that no innocent son would support a guilty father unless he had something to hide. His steadfast defense of Alex became evidence of a family conspiracy in their minds. But there's another interpretation, one that's far more human and heartbreaking. Buster was a traumatized young man clinging to the only family he had left. The alternative, accepting that his father was a killer, would mean accepting that he was completely alone in the world. Psychology experts call this trauma bonding. When someone experiences severe loss, they often cling desperately to remaining relationships, even when those relationships are toxic. For Buster, admitting his father's guilt would mean admitting that everything he believed about his family was a lie. The loyalty that his critics see as evidence of guilt might actually be evidence of just how thoroughly Alex's crimes destroyed his son's ability to think clearly. When Alex Murdaugh finally faced the reality of his situation, his apology to Buster revealed the true scope of his crimes. He wasn't just apologizing for the murders. He was apologizing for destroying his son's entire future. Listen to the pain in that apology. Alex knows what his crimes have cost Buster. The suspicion, the harassment, the financial ruin, the social isolation. He's acknowledging that his actions have condemned his surviving son to a lifetime of suffering.
I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you and Paul. I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media, and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance
of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you, and Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys how impressed people are with the way that you have carried yourself through all of this. I want you to remember that rational, reasonable thinking people never make as much noise as haters do. I want you to continue to tune them out and continue to be the bigger person as you have this whole time.
But notice something else in that apology. There's no suggestion that Buster was involved in anything. If Buster had been part of a family conspiracy, if he had helped cover up crimes, wouldn't Alex's apology sound different? Wouldn't there be acknowledgement of shared guilt? Instead, what we hear is a father devastated by what his actions have done to his innocent son. But let's examine why some people remain convinced of Buster's guilt. What drives the persistent belief that he's involved in multiple deaths? First, there's the family history. The Murdaugh dynasty allegedly covered up crimes for decades. Some people believe this culture of corruption must have infected every family member, including Buster. Second, there's the Stephen Smith connection. The fact that Buster's name keeps surfacing in connection with that case, despite the lack of evidence, fuels speculation that there's something authorities aren't telling us. Third, there's his demeanor. Critics point to his calm appearance during interviews and court proceedings as evidence of guilt. They expect more dramatic displays of grief and interpret his composure as coldness. Fourth, there's the timing. Some theorists find it suspicious that Stephen Smith died in 2015, during a period when the Murdaugh family's legal troubles were intensifying. They see it as part of a pattern of violence designed to protect the family secrets. Finally, there's the financial motive theory. Some suggest that Buster might have been involved in his father's financial crimes and that the murders were committed to prevent exposure. But here's the problem with all these theories. They're built on speculation, not evidence. They rely on assumptions about family dynamics, interpretations of behavior, and connections that exist only in the minds of conspiracy theorists. Now let's examine the evidence that suggests Buster is exactly what he appears to be, an innocent victim of his father's crimes. First, there's the timeline. Buster had a solid alibi for the night of the murders. He was nearly 200 miles away, with phone records and witnesses to confirm his location. Unless he hired a hitman, a theory no one has seriously proposed, he couldn't have been involved in killing his mother and brother. Second, there's the lack of motive. What would Buster gain from his family's deaths? He lost his inheritance, his social status, and his future. If this was about money, he got none. If it was about freedom from family pressure, he gained only isolation and suspicion. Third, there's his behavior after the murders. If Buster was involved in a conspiracy, why would he continue supporting his father once it became clear Alex would be convicted? A guilty co-conspirator would distance himself, not double down on loyalty. Fourth, there's the Stephen Smith case. Despite years of investigation and numerous interviews, no credible evidence has emerged linking Buster to Stephen's death. The case remains unsolved, but that doesn't mean Buster is the answer to the mystery. Finally, there's the prosecution's approach. During Alex's trial, prosecutors had every incentive to implicate Buster if they had evidence of his involvement. The fact that they didn't suggest there simply isn't any credible evidence against him. Strip away all the theories and conspiracy thinking, and what remains is a human story of devastating loss and unimaginable suffering. Buster Murdaugh lost his mother and brother in a brutal double murder. He then discovered that his father, the person he trusted most, was responsible for their deaths. His family's reputation was obliterated, their wealth evaporated, and their name became synonymous with corruption and violence. On top of this personal catastrophe, he's been subjected to years of online harassment and baseless accusations. He's been unable to grieve privately, unable to rebuild quietly, unable to move forward without constant scrutiny. Consider the psychological impact of this digital persecution. Every day, new theories emerge about his guilt. Every week, another true crime podcast discusses him as a potential suspect. Every month, another documentary includes him in discussions of unsolved murders. He can't defend himself against accusations that have no factual basis because you can't prove a negative. He can't make the speculation stop because the internet never forgets and rarely forgives. If Buster is innocent, and there's no credible evidence to suggest otherwise, then he represents something truly horrific. A victim who's been transformed into a suspect by the sheer force of collective suspicion. Beyond the emotional and social costs, Buster has faced complete financial ruin as a result of his father's crimes. Alex Murdaugh's theft of millions of dollars from his law firm and clients left the family with massive debts and legal obligations. The Moselle hunting lodge, where his mother and brother died, sold to help compensate Alex's victims. The family law firm that had been their source of power for generations dissolved in disgrace. The trust funds and inheritances that should have secured his future, gone, consumed by legal fees and restitution payments. Buster went from being heir to a legal dynasty worth millions to being effectively penniless overnight. He's had to rebuild his life from scratch while carrying the burden of a name that's become toxic in legal circles. Finding employment has reportedly been extremely difficult. Law firms won't hire him because of the family scandal. Other employers are reluctant to associate with the Murdaugh name. Even basic social interactions are complicated when your family name is infamous. This isn't just about money. It's about the complete destruction of any normal future. Buster can't escape his family's legacy because it's literally his name. He can't start fresh because his past follows him everywhere. The Murdaugh case has attracted unprecedented media attention, and Buster has been caught in the center of that storm. Every major news outlet has covered the story. Multiple documentaries have been produced. Countless podcasts have dissected every aspect of the case. And in almost every piece of coverage, Buster's name comes up. Sometimes as a witness, sometimes as a person of interest, sometimes as a suspect in a court of public opinion. Each mention brings fresh scrutiny, new theories, and additional harassment. The true crime industry has turned his family's tragedy into entertainment, and he's powerless to stop it. His mother's murder, his brother's death, his father's crimes, all have become content for podcasts, documentaries, and social media posts. He's trapped in a nightmare where his personal trauma is public entertainment, where his grief is analyzed by strangers, where his every expression is interpreted as evidence of guilt or innocence. The Stephen Smith case remains open, and every development brings fresh speculation about Buster's potential involvement. When investigators interview new witnesses, true crime communities immediately theorize about what they might have said about Buster. When evidence is re-examined, social media users debate whether it implicates him. This creates a vicious cycle where the ongoing investigation feeds the speculation, and the speculation maintains public interest in the investigation. Buster remains trapped in this cycle, unable to move forward while questions about his past continue to swirl. The most tragic aspect of this situation is that Stephen Smith's family deserves answers about what happened to their son. But the focus on Buster, based on rumors rather than evidence, might actually be hindering the investigation by diverting attention from more credible leads. Why are people so determined to believe Buster is guilty of something? The answer lies in several psychological phenomena that drive our relationship with high-profile crimes. First, there's guilt by association. When someone commits a heinous crime, we instinctively look suspiciously at their family members. We assume criminality runs in families, that violence is inherited through bloodlines rather than learned through environment. Second, there's the need for narrative completion. The Stephen Smith case remains unsolved, leaving people psychologically unsatisfied. The Murdaugh family murders, while solved, feel incomplete to some. They want more conspirators, more complexity, more players in the drama. Third, there's a social media echo chamber effect. When enough people repeat a theory online, it begins to feel like established fact. When true crime influencers discuss someone as a person of interest, their followers start treating that person as guilty. Fourth, there's confirmation bias. People who already believe in Buster's guilt interpret every piece of information, his silence, his statements, his expressions, his actions, as evidence supporting their existing belief. Finally, there's the entertainment factor. Buster's story is compelling precisely because of its ambiguity. The uncertainty makes for engaging content, regardless of the human cost to the person at the center of the speculation. The treatment of Buster Murdaugh represents something dangerous, the erosion of fundamental principles of justice in the age of social media. The presumption of innocence, the idea that people are innocent until proven guilty, has been completely abandoned in his case. He's been tried and convicted in the court of public opinion based on nothing more than his family name, internet rumors, and the human need to assign blame for unsolved mysteries. This isn't justice, it's digital mob rule. When we decide someone is guilty based on their associations rather than their actions, based on speculation rather than evidence, we undermine the very foundations of our legal system. We become no better than the lynch mobs of the past, just with Wi-Fi and social media accounts. What does the future hold for Buster Murdaugh? The sad reality is that he may never escape the shadow of suspicion that surrounds him. In our digital age, accusations have a way of becoming permanent, of being treated as fact simply through repetition. He may spend the rest of his life answering questions about crimes he didn't commit, defending himself against accusations with no basis in evidence. Every job interview, every relationship, every attempt at normalcy will be complicated by the theories that follow his name. The Stephen Smith case may never be solved, leaving that cloud of suspicion hanging over him forever. New documentaries will continue to be made about his family, and his name will continue to surface as a person of interest in cases where he's never been officially implicated. This is the true cost of our true crime obsession. Real people who become trapped in narratives they can't control, who become suspects in crimes they didn't commit, who lose their futures to our need for entertainment and closure. So what is Buster Murdaugh? Victim or villain? Innocent son destroyed by his father's crimes? Or calculating conspirator who's escaped justice? The evidence, or rather, the complete lack of evidence against him, points strongly toward innocence. Every investigation has failed to find credible proof of his involvement in any crime. Every theory about his guilt falls apart under scrutiny. But the court of public opinion operates by different rules than the legal system. In the realm of social media speculation and true crime entertainment, evidence is optional and suspicion is enough for conviction. The real tragedy of Buster's story isn't just that he lost his family to violence and corruption. It's that he's been denied the chance to grieve and rebuild because strangers on the internet have decided he's guilty of crimes he's never been charged with. If we're honest about what we know versus what we suspect, if we separate fact from fiction and evidence from speculation, then Buster Murdaugh emerges not as a hidden villain, but as perhaps the most victimized person in this entire saga. He didn't choose his family. He didn't choose their crimes. He didn't choose the suspicion that now defines his existence. He's simply trying to survive in the aftermath of events that destroyed everything he thought he knew about his life. The truth about Buster Murdaugh isn't complex or mysterious. It's devastatingly simple. Sometimes, being related to monsters is punishment enough. What do you think about Buster's situation? Are we witnessing the destruction of an innocent man? Or is there something we're missing? Let me know in the comments. But remember, we're talking about a real person's life here. So, keep it respectful. If you want to see more deep dives like this one, make sure you're subscribed to Dark Trail Files with notifications turned on. We're not afraid to ask the hard questions and challenge the popular narratives. And if you haven't seen our 2-part investigation into the Murdaugh murders yet, those links are in the description. You need to watch those to understand the full scope of this family's downfall. Until next time, keep questioning everything, but remember the difference between suspicion and evidence. Truth matters, even when it's not as entertaining as fiction.